How many of you, if given the opportunity, would stay up super crazy, stupid late and sleep in until like 3 p.m? Oh, you're my people. That's my people. How many of you are like, well, I could stay up, but I'm still gonna be up really, really early. My body doesn't know any better. Now I know who to pray for, okay? Because sleeping in is a glorious gift. How many of y'all like sleeping in is a glorious gift? Or how about like your body wakes up because you're nervous about being late for something and you do that fast, crazy, scared wake up and you wake up quick and then you look over at the clock or you pick up your phone and you look at it and you're like, oh, I get to sleep for 2 more hours. And isn't it the best? Oh, it's such a good feeling. So that's sleep. That's sleep. But what I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about rest. Because rest is not sleep. Rest is different. And rest can be really hard to find in our culture today. In fact, I would go as far as to say that rest is almost impossible to find in our culture today. And the reason that rest is so hard to find in our culture is because we don't value rest. I was a coach for years, and one of the things that I remember as a coach, very seldom, and this is terrible to say out loud, and I'm sure your coaches aren't this way at all, but I never took a timeout because I thought, you know what, Dan is just really tired. You know what the thoughtful thing to do to be Coach Colby? I should take a timeout and let him sit down for a minute and take a rest. That never crossed my mind. I took timeouts because Dan made a bad pass and he needed to sit his rear end down and I need to tell him about it so it didn't happen again. How many of y'all, be real, your coaches take timeouts and take not to give you a rest, but to tell you the rest of the story to make sure you know how bad you screwed up. Let me think there, yeah. During breaks, during quarters, during halftime. Let's be real. How much of you think that has more to do with strategy than rest? More strategy than rest. Okay, about half of us. How about this? How many of you find you have a very difficult time resting when you go home? Because your brain's going, or your phone's in your hand, or you have more you have to do to be ready for the busy that's gonna attack your face tomorrow morning? Yeah, me too. I have a few friends that are gonna come up and help me with an illustration. So if that's you, would you please come up here now? Hopefully you know who you are. I'm hoping for 4 people. If it's more than that, then I'm gonna be bummed because I don't need more than 4 people. Yeah. Wow, I got really, really awesome, pretty helpers. This is great. Would you please cheer for my volunteers? This is awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna stand here and I need 2 of you to flare out this way to make a semicircle around me. Very cool, so stand right there. You're fine, Maddie, right there.
Okay.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, Maddie.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Raya. Do me a favor and hold that for me. Jojo, do me a favor and hold that for me. Please do me a favor. Hold the ball, not the string. Please don't.
I'm sorry. It was shorter than I thought it was gonna be.
Classic Elise. Yeah. Okay. Now I want you to take a look at this. Life is full of managing different tensions in your life. In fact, the more that you learn this, the better an adult you're going to be. There's constant tensions in your life. There's a tension with being honest and with being kind, right? There's a tension with being close to someone and smothering them. There's a tension with being strong and being vulnerable. But there's other tensions too. Because see, here's really what's going on in our lives. I have my tension with my relationships here. And it's always pulling on me in some way, shape, or form. I have my responsibilities that are pulling on me this way, in some way, shape, or form. For some of you, responsibilities might be school right now. That's probably a primary responsibility for a lot of you. Then over here, you might have a job or some kind of other activity or professional responsibility that's next. And then I'm hoping, do you have other close relationships that aren't just your outside relationships that you take seriously? And because of technology, and because of how busy you are, with 0 hours at school, with extra practices and lessons and homework and efforts after school, because of performances and shows, because of competitions. This is the life that you live in. And the problem is if you never rest, you feel this tension of people pulling you somehow, whether it's through a screen, through a hand, through a face, through a commitment, through a calendar, through a schedule, through a competition, through an expectation, or through the own pressure that you put on yourself. This is how you live. And God never meant you to live this way or to be one more tension. See, it was never supposed to be that your relationship with God or your church commitment was supposed to be one more of these. It's actually quite the opposite. Your relationship with God is not just work. It's actually supposed to be rest. Would you please cheer for these beautiful, amazing young women that helped me today? Thank you. Elise.
I didn't do that.
Oh, sorry, Habit.
Try that.
Thank you so much, ladies. Habit, y'all like that? You might not know this, but it actually goes all the way back to the first time that God sets a foundation for what it means to have a relationship with Him. Because see, here's what happens. At the very beginning of the Bible, you have Genesis that explains the beginning of everything. Then you have this book called Exodus, and Exodus explains God taking a people group and establishing relationship with them after they rebelled. And what He does after He brings them out is He brings them outside of Egypt, and He brings their leader up away from the people onto a mountain. And He explains to them the foundation of what His boundaries are. You might have a picture of it in your head of looking like this guy from the old 10 Commandments movie that came out a long, long time ago. All right? It's Moses. And Moses got the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments were something very serious that God gave the people, and these were His boundaries. And they were so serious that they were commands. That's hence the clever word commandments, right? And there were how many of them? See, y'all are so smart here in Texas. That's just beautiful. Okay, 10 commandments, that's right. Here's the interesting thing. The first 4 of these 10 commandments have to do with the way you directly interact with God. And by the way, if you're curious to read these on your own, they're in Exodus chapter 20 is where they are. And so the first 4 have to do directly with the way we as humans interact directly with God. The next 6 have to do directly with how we as humans should interact with one another if we take seriously our interaction with God. Tracking so far? Okay, so I looked on Pinterest, which of course is the source of all great wisdom in today's world. And Pinterest had an abbreviated version of the 10 Commandments for those of us who have either ADD or ADD attention span. So I thought I'd share it with you. So let's take a look at the Pinterest version of the 10 Commandments. The Pinterest version of the 10 Commandments goes something like this. Can we have that come up? Please. Okay, those are the tablets. Can we have the Pinterest one come up? That's a lot shorter for my attention span. Oh, God's top 10. Isn't that cute? Everybody say, "Aww." Okay, so number 1 is put God first. That's number 1, put God first. Number 2 is to worship Him only, which might sound a little funky, but did you know that worship is whatever you make a priority and bow down your life to? Did you know that? Let that hang in the air for a minute. If you had to have an honest, deep spiritual conversation with someone who cared about you and you cared about them, what would you really say that you worshiped if somebody was a spectator in your life? Okay, number 3, no bad words. No bad words. You're supposed to take care of the way you use God's name. There's a few other words we're supposed to be careful about how we say them too. Number 4, work 6, rest 1. Work 6, rest 1. That's in there, promise. Now we jump into the ones that have to do about our relationship with other people. Number 5, here's the very first one. It's not a coincidence that the very first one that has to do with us interacting with other humans is the humans who brought you into this world. Because the reason why is because God's people would have known that in nature, there are parent animals that will kill their young if they annoy them too much, and He just wants to protect us. So number 5, obey your parents. Number 6, harm no one. Number 7, don't cheat. Number 8, if it's not yours, don't take it. And some of you are thinking, I'm pretty sure I saw this in my 3rd grade classroom. And number 9, tell the truth. Can I give you a quick life hack right here? If you want to be a fantastic boyfriend or girlfriend, hold on to number 9 like it's crazy, stupid important. Because if you really want to build a great relationship with somebody, don't lie. That was free. Okay, number 10. Number 10, don't be jealous of other people's stuff. Now I'm going to give you the old guy advice. If you want to release yourself to have more joy in your life, hold on to number 10 like crazy. Because a lot of grumpiness that creeps into the cracks of your life does so because of something you want that someone else has. That's free too. So if we were to kind of put these down, and I'm gonna do a Pastor Colby E's translation with them, we're gonna focus on the top 4, and this is how I abbreviated them, because I thought that was kind of cute, but I also thought it was a little too oversimplified. So I'm gonna break down the top 4. Number 1 was worship God and serve him only as God. That's a big statement. To worship means to bow down your life in front of who you give specific God credit to in your life, who made you and who continues to make you, who is your hope and your anchor in your storm. That's God. Worship God and serve him only as God. Number 2, no other gods. Don't put pressure on yourself to create other gods. Whether they're made of brick or stone, whether they're made of wood or metal, whether they're made of technology, sensuality, emotionality. If there is intentionality, you are making a God rather than reacting to the real God. Number 3, respect how you talk about God and how you speak God's name. Makes sense? Somebody you really care about, their name should never be a swear word. You can tweet that. That sounds profound. It's not. It's just the 10 Commandments. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day and treat it with holy respect. This is a big deal. This is talking about rest. This is talking about pausing your busy life and doing something different. It's talking about taking a moment to align who you are with who he is and who he says you are. That's the Sabbath. So if you go to Exodus 20, it's talked about in 3 verses. In Exodus chapter 20, starting in verse 8, remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. That includes you, your sons, your daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners. I don't know how exactly you make livestock not work exactly. Maybe it just means you don't put leashes on them and force them to pull things. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't mean you have to not eat them, because in Texas we break that every Sunday. If you're a vegetarian, I'm kind of sorry. And any foreigners living among you, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the 7th day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy. Now here's something you need to understand. The Sabbath day doesn't exist because God got tired after making everything for 6 days, and because he knows you get tired that you have to rest too. He knows you're gonna get tired and he knows you need rest. But the reason he rested was to enjoy what he has, not because he had to rest. And you and me, because we're made in his image, both are true. We both have to rest because we need it, but the other thing is he wants us to enjoy what he's given us. And that's a big statement. And the problem is if your life has all that tension, you never take the time to really enjoy the things he's given you. You never allow yourself the freedom to enjoy being his kid. You never allow yourself to pause and let him really talk to you. Sometimes to slow down enough to let him touch you. You know, really great athletes were impressed by that when they move so quickly that no one can touch them. But when it comes to a relationship, it's a bad thing to move so fast so that people can't touch you. And it's no different in our relationship with God too. It's no different. Now, last summer, and some of you have had glimpses of it, but I don't think anybody here knows the full story. Last summer, I went through one of the roughest seasons that I've gone through in a long time. Over the course of about a month and a half, some of this was just really awesome stuff, but all piled together all at once. I got to be part of our senior mission trip to Guatemala City, where we helped build a house for a family that needed a house, and we went into a neighborhood and encouraged them. And if you're a senior this year, I can't more highly encourage you to be thinking and praying about our Guatemala City mission trip that'll be coming up this summer. And I went right from that to going to high school summer camp. And high school summer camp is rad, don't get me wrong. It is at the beach, and I hold quite adamantly that a bad day at the beach is still better than a good day almost anywhere else. I firmly believe that to be true. But it was still 17 hours in a bus there and 17 hours back. It was still another week, not in my own bed. And while I was there, I got some of the most awful news that you never ever want to get. I got the news that one of my family members had done something really terrible and that the consequences for them had caught up with them. And when you really care about somebody and you find out that something really awful has happened to them, whether they did it to themselves or someone else did it to them, your heart still breaks because they're yours. And so I had to deal with that while I was there at summer camp. And I had to pack that with me as I came home. And then when I came home, I had a little bit of time, and then I went to middle school summer camp. And some of you all, when you were in middle school, you were crazy, okay? And some of you were only like a couple of months removed from being in middle school. And so you remember really clearly how crazy you were. And so we went to the summer camp, and it was a lot. It was a lot of activity, and it was a lot. And then when I came back, there was a 16-year-old that was coming in and out of our ministry that hung himself on the monkey bars at the park across the street from his house. And I did the funeral for him. And it's really, really hard to do a funeral for somebody who took their own life when you feel like you might have been able to have kept it from happening. And so this summer just piled on me over and over and over. In addition of trying to be a good brother and a good son and a good dad and a good husband and a good pastor and a good follower of Jesus, those strings that were pulling on me kept pulling on me and pulling on me. And I needed to get to a place of rest. And so I did. I just stopped my life. I was supposed to go to the Bronx mission trip. I pulled out. I spent a week and a half. I met with a pastor bro who just listened to me and helped me get my head straight. I read a book called Soul Care that just helped me realign my heart and my mind and my life about who Jesus was in my own life and how I could give him my pain and my frustration and my fears. And then the best way that I could explain this to you is how many of you drive? Does anybody drive yet? Okay. How many of you want to drive even though you don't drive yet? I'm hoping everyone else's hands go up. If so, I'm gonna pray for you later. That's messed up. When you start driving, one of the things that you have to be aware of is some of the sounds that you hear with your car. And one of the sounds you should always be listening for is how your brakes sound. Your brakes are very, very important. See, to give you just a very small lesson, I'm not a great mechanic. Like I'm the guy who hands things to the mechanic. I'm the guy that gets cold drinks for the mechanic. I'm the guy that makes jokes so the mechanic will like me and give me either a better price or help me more. That's me, okay? I'm not a mechanic. But I know just enough because I've seen enough to know a little bit about brakes. How brakes work is there's a metal piece that has this material. It's usually made out of something like ceramic. It's something that's both hard and soft. And what it is the brake is pushed against a metal part on your wheel to slow down your car. And as that layer of stuff gets worn down, the metal on it starts to make noise. And so when you hear metal on metal sound, that means you're in deep doo-doo. And you have to change your brakes. The longer you wait, the more expensive it becomes. And the other thing that gets scary is if your brakes don't work, you can get hurt. In your life, when you don't rest, it's like a brake pad on brakes on a car. You wear down your layers so that you don't have layers anymore. So metal's rubbing on metal. You can be unsafe. You can accidentally hurt others. And you can cause damage to your life. And it's because a lot of times we don't take time to just rest. So how do we do this? It's really deeply profound. It starts when you just choose to stop. That's what you have to do. You stop. And then when you stop, you allow yourself to be fully present. And when you're fully present, you allow yourself to experience who God is. When you do that, everything changes. See, in Matthew 11, Jesus is really clear with it. He said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary," which means tired, "and carry heavy burdens," which is you, because you're a competitor and a performer and an athlete and a thinker and an academic and a brother and a sister. You're a caregiver. You're responsible. You're someone who people depend on. You have burdens. So come to me, you who are weary, which is all of us, and bring your heavy burdens, because he'll give you rest. By the way, that word rest, I looked it up, what it said in the original language. That word rest literally means to cease moving so you can refresh your life. That's what that word means. It means you cease moving to refresh your life. And if you do that, things change. But to do that, you have to stop and you have to allow yourself to be refreshed. When you do that, things change. And some of you might be thinking, well, I don't know how to do that, Colby. You know what? You do. If I'm really honest, the best way I like to rest is I like to take the love of my life and I like to just hold her and feel her heartbeat with my life. And I like to hold her without an agenda or a purpose or a time frame or an acknowledgement of the reality swirling around me at breakneck speed. And at that moment, I'm amongst the happiest I am in my life because I'm resting. And I wonder if part of that is that I was trained to do this when I was little, because there's something about holding something else that's soft and real that helps us as humans rest. Because when you were little, you probably had something like this that you took to bed with you. Because when something bad happened to you when you were little, you might have been given something like this to hold on to. Because there are firefighters and first responders that have bags full of these to give kids at the scenes of accidents and house fires and tragedy. But here's the thing that you need to understand. When you rest in your relationship with Jesus, you're the teddy bear. Because all of us need to feel held and wanted and warm and safe. And when you allow yourself to rest in him, this is how it should look from his perspective. But you have to slow down and allow yourself to refresh. See, when we do this, there's a peace that comes with a promise. But before I get there and I finish, when you rest with him, he does what only he can do. This is a profound statement that's taken me way too long to learn. When you rest, you let him do what only he can do. If you're trying to find peace and rest through other people making choices for you, you're gonna be terribly disappointed. If you try to find rest after you get something done, you will terribly disappoint yourself because there's always something else to do. When you rest with him, he does what only he can do. But here's the thing that's crazy. God loves you so much that he won't push rest on you. He waits for you to rest in him. But he loves you, so you need to do what only you can do. You need to slow down long enough to allow him to enjoy you and you to enjoy him. And when you do that, everything changes. A key passage of scripture for me that's helped me in this in my life right now is Philippians chapter 4. In Philippians chapter 4, we read, "Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he's done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus." This is a promise. This is the rhythm. This is my hope. And this is my prayer for you. That you, in your busy life, will not see your relationship with God as work, but you will include rest. That you will slow down enough to let him hold you and for you to hold him back. That you will experience his peace that works despite our ability to understand why it works. It exceeds our understanding. And that you will take a moment, even tonight when you go home tonight, or maybe even tonight as part of your small group time, to take a deep breath, be fully present, and allow yourself to experience real rest. And if you struggle doing this, please talk to your small group leader. And if the tensions are too high and hard, please talk to someone, because you're too important to allow those tensions to pull you apart. You were made to rest.